sleep. When we talk about blessings, especially the kind you can't handle right now, it's easy to imagine them as something purely external, can suppress sudden opportunity, a financial breakthrough, a relationship that changes your life. And while those things can absolutely be part of what we call a blessing, there's a deeper truth at play. The reality is, more often than not, the size of the blessing is determined not by God's ability to give, but by our capacity to receive deep sleep. That's the part we don't always like to hear, because it puts the responsibility back on us. Think about it this way: can suppress deep sleep. If you gave a child a gift they weren't ready for, that gift could overwhelm them or even harm them. A car given to a teenager who hasn't learned to drive yet isn't a blessing. It's a hazard. The same principle applies in our spiritual and personal lives. The timing of the blessing is rarely the issue. It's the readiness of the receiver. Sleep and readiness isn't about deserving something. It's about being prepared to hold it without letting it slip through your fingers. Sleep, from a psychological standpoint, there's a principle called capacity building. In neuroscience, sleep, we see that the brain adapts to new levels of complexity and responsibility gradually through repeated exposure and intentional practice. If you sleep, you suddenly doubled someone's responsibilities or resources overnight. Without that gradual build-up, their nervous system would interpret it as stress, not success. The body and mind need time to integrate new levels of abundance without triggering survival mode. And this is where faith intersects with psychology. God often stretches our capacity slowly because sudden expansion without preparation can cause collapse. So, what does it actually mean to position yourself for overflow? First, it means aligning your inner life with the reality of what you're asking for: sleep. Most people live in a constant state of contradiction. They pray for more, but their habits are built for less. They want the next level, but their mindset is still anchored in the previous one. If you want to receive something bigger, you have to become someone bigger on the inside first. Can suppress deep sleep. This isn't about ego or arrogance. It's about the kind of growth that allows you to carry something weighty without being crushed by it. One of the most profound ways to prepare is through consistency in the small things. We tend to overlook the day-to-day choices that shape who we are. But here's the reality: God will often test your faithfulness in private before He blesses you in public. This isn't punishment. It's protection. Why sleep? If you can't manage 100 wisely, you won't manage $10,000 without chaos. If you can't lead yourself with discipline, sleep. You can't lead others with integrity. The blessing isn't just about you. It's about everyone it will affect. And that's why preparation matters. Sleep. Philosophically, this is tied to the idea of stewardship. Ancient wisdom traditions, from the parables of Jesus to the writings of Marcus Aurelius, press sleep. Emphasize the discipline of managing what's in your hands before asking for more. Stewardship is not passive. It's an active demonstration of worthiness. And it's not just about resources, it's about character. Sleep. The world often confuses capacity with desire. You might desperately want a certain opportunity, sleep. But if your character isn't aligned with the responsibility that opportunity brings, the very thing you prayed for become the thing that breaks you. Another layer of positioning is mental resilience. When blessings come, they don't remove challenges. They magnify them. Increased influence brings increased scrutiny. Greater resources bring greater demands. More opportunities mean more decisions, each with higher stakes. Psychologically, this requires what's called cognitive flexibility, the ability to adapt to changing circumstances without losing your sense of self. Can suppress deep sleep. This isn't something you acquire the moment the blessing arrives. It's something you develop in the seasons of preparation. You can think of it like training for a marathon. No serious runner shows up at the starting line without months of conditioning. Why? Deep sleep. Because their body wouldn't sustain the distance otherwise. If you tried to run 26 miles without preparation, sleep, your body would break down long before the finish line. In the same way, blessings can have a weight. to them. Without preparation, that weight can cause collapse. With preparation, it becomes something you can carry and even build upon. And here's the paradox. Preparation seasons often feel like delays. They can feel frustrating, even unfair. You know you're capable of more than your current circumstances. Deep sleep. You're ready for the promotion, the platform, the breakthrough, but it's not coming. This is where trust becomes essential. What if the delay isn't a denial, but a deep work of expansion inside you? What if God is growing your root system so that when the blessing comes, you won't be uprooted by its weight? Neuroscience teaches us that delayed gratification is one of the strongest predictors of long-term success. The ability to wait, to endure tension without impulsively reaching for relief, is what separates those who sustain success from those who burn out quickly. Spiritually, deep sleep. This patience is more than self-control. It's a posture of trust. It's saying, I'm not just waiting for the blessing, I'm becoming the person who can hold it. A practical preparation can take many forms. Maybe it's getting your finances in order. Press deep sleep, not because you're obsessed with money, but because you're demonstrating that you can manage resources wisely. Maybe it's working on your emotional intelligence, learning to listen deeply, to resolve conflict with grace, to lead without dominating. Sleep. Maybe it's strengthening your health because carrying a bigger vision will require more energy. Every act of preparation is a signal to yourself, deep sleep, to others and to God, that you're ready to operate at a higher level. There's also an important psychological shift that has to happen, moving from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. Scarcity says, I have to hold on tightly to what I have because there's not enough to go around. Abundance says, there's more than enough, and I can operate generously without fear of loss. The blessing you're waiting for may require you to give more, risk more, trust more. If you're suppressed sleep, you're operating from scarcity. When the blessing arrives, you'll sabotage it, either by hoarding it or by being too afraid to step fully into it. One of the subtle traps people fall into is assuming that readiness is purely about skill or resources. But at the deepest level, it's about identity. If you don't believe you are worthy of receiving something, you will unconsciously repel it. Your beliefs shape your actions, and your actions shape your outcomes. Sleep. So part of positioning yourself for overflow is doing the internal work to align your identity with the size of the blessing you're expecting. In psychological terms, this involves reprogramming your self-schema, the mental model of who you believe yourself to be. If your self-schema is limited, you will interpret every new opportunity through that limitation. You might underprice your work, self-sabotage relationships, or turn down opportunities because people like me don't get things like that. God can open the door. Deep sleep. But if you don't believe you belong in the room, you'll find a reason to walk back out. And I want to be clear, this isn't about inflating your ego. True readiness is a mix of confidence and humility. Confidence says, I am equipped for this. Humility says, sleep. I am dependent on God for the wisdom and strength to sustain this. When those two qualities work together, deep sleep, you can step into a blessing without letting it define you and without fearing that it will slip away. So here's the question I want you to wrestle with. If God answered your biggest prayer tomorrow, would your current habits, mindset, and emotional health be able to sustain it? Or would it crush you under its weight? That's not a question meant to shame. It's meant to awaken you. Because the good news is you can start preparing today. You can start aligning your inner life with the outer reality you're expecting. Can suppress deep sleep. This is where the preparation becomes worship. Every time you make a choice that aligns with where you're going rather than where you've been, you're positioning yourself for overflow. Every time you choose integrity over shortcuts, discipline over comfort, generosity over fear, sleep, you're enlarging your capacity to receive. And when the blessing finally comes, and you won't just have it for a moment, can the suppressed sleep, you'll have the maturity, resilience, and wisdom to carry it for a lifetime. So prepare like it's coming tomorrow, but trust like it might take years. That combination, urgent action with patient trust, is the sweet spot where readiness meets divine timing, sleep. And when those two collide, you won't just get the blessing, you'll be ready to multiply it. The blessing is not waiting on God's willingness. It's waiting on your readiness, sleep. From a philosophical perspective, stewardship is about management, not ownership. We are caretakers of what we've been given. Whether it's money, influence, relationships, or skills, none of it is truly ours in the permanent sense. We are temporary holders of temporary resources. This perspective changes everything. When you see yourself as a steward, you stop asking, what do I want to do with this? And start asking, suppress sleep. What's the best use of this for the purpose it's meant to serve? In leadership psychology, there's a concept called servant leadership. It flips the traditional power structure on its head. Suppress sleep. Instead of the leader existing for the benefit of the position exists for the benefit of those being led. Suppress sleep. The leader's job is to serve the mission and the people, not the other way around. Sleep. Stewardship works the same way. Your blessing exists for the mission it's tied to, not simply for your comfort. Now, there's another danger in blessings, mismanagement through neglect. We often assume that blessings fail because of direct sabotage, pride, greed, or recklessness. But sometimes they fade simply because we stop tending to them. Think of a garden. The moment you stop watering, the decline begins. You don't have to actively destroy it to wither. Neglect does the job quietly. The same applies to relationships, opportunities, influence, and skills. Without intentional care, they erode. Neurologically, this ties into the concept of hedonic adaptation. Our brains are wired to normalize new levels of comfort or success over time. What once felt extraordinary eventually feels ordinary, and then, if we're not mindful, we stop valuing it. Sleep. This is why some people lose sight of their blessings. They've adapted them so fully that they no longer see them as remarkable. Humility counteracts this by keeping gratitude alive. Gratitude slows hedonic adaptation, deep sleep, allowing you to continually recognize the worth of what you've been given. Sleep. Protecting the blessing also means protecting yourself from the vulnerabilities that come with it. Every new level brings exposure. More influence attracts more opinions. More resources attract more requests. More success draws more eyes. Some supportive, some critical. Without healthy boundaries, the blessing can drain you emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Boundaries are not barriers to generosity. They are structures that allow generosity to be sustainable. There's a discipline in saying no can suppress sleep, even to good things if they compromise the longevity of the blessing. If you're constantly overextended, suppress deep sleep. You risk burning out or making poor decisions that jeopardize what you've built. Part of stewardship is knowing your capacity and protecting it fiercely. Deep sleep. This is where humility and wisdom meet. Humility to know you can't do everything, and wisdom to know what's worth doing. Sleep. Another layer of protecting the blessing is safeguarding it from the erosion of character. Many people think losing a blessing happens suddenly, a scandal, a financial collapse, a public fall from grace. But more often, it's the result of a series of small compromises. One overlooked detail here, one unchallenged lie there, one moment of pride left unchecked. And over time, the foundation weakens. By the time the collapse is visible, the damage has been happening quietly for a long time. Psychologically, this is related to the slippery slope effect. Once we justify a small lapse in integrity, it becomes easier to justify the next and the next. Protecting the blessing requires daily vigilance in your values. This doesn't mean perfection. It means awareness and course correction. Suppress deep sleep. It means surrounding yourself with people who will speak truth to you, even when it's uncomfortable, and staying teachable, no matter how much you've achieved. It's also important to understand that blessings are seasonal. Leap. The way you protect a blessing today may not be the same way you protect it 5 years from now. Stewardship is adaptive. It requires constant evaluation. This is where the philosophical concept of telos comes in, meaning the ultimate aim or purpose of something. If you lose sight of the purpose, you'll eventually lose the blessing. A blessing without purpose is like a ship without a destination. It drifts until it's lost. The people who protect their blessings best are those who never stop seeing themselves as students. No matter how much they know, they remain curious, sleep, open to new perspectives, willing to refine their approach. They don't cling to the blessing out of fear. They hold it with open hands, ready to release it or redirect it if that's what the mission requires. This level of detachment isn't about carelessness. It's about trust. Trust sleep. Trust that the same God who gave it can give again, and that the purpose always outweighs the possession. Sleep. Protecting the blessing also involves multiplying it. This might sound counterintuitive. Shouldn't protection mean holding onto it tightly? But in reality, the safest way to preserve a blessing is to put it to work. Money sitting idle loses value over time. Skills unused grow dull. Influence hoarded fades. But when you invest, share, teach, and sow into others, the blessing grows, roots that go deeper than you, can suppress deep sleep. That's how it outlives you. And here's the deeper truth. When you protect a blessing with humility and stewardship, sleep, you prepare yourself for the next one. God rarely stops at one, but he won't pour more into hands that have proven careless with what's already there. The blessing is both a gift and a test. Can suppress sleep. How you handle it reveals whether you're ready for greater responsibility. I think about this often in terms of legacy. A blessing isn't fully realized until it impacts people you may never meet in places you may never go. That's the power of stewardship. It takes something temporary and makes it eternal in its impact. But that only happens when we refuse to let pride, entitlement, or negligence get in the way. So when the blessing arrives, don't just celebrate it, guard it. Not out of fear, but out of reverence for what it represents. Keep your heart humble, your hands open, and your eyes fixed on the purpose. Press deep sleep. Remind yourself daily that you are not the source, just the steward. Let gratitude anchor you. Let discipline guide you. Deep sleep. And let generosity keep the blessing in motion. Because blessings are not trophies. They are trusts. Can suppress deep sleep. They're not proof that you've arrived. They're opportunities to serve on a larger scale. And when you protect them well, can suppress deep sleep. You're not just preserving something for yourself. You're creating space for others to experience overflow through you. Sleep. The blessing you keep is the blessing you protect. The blessing you multiply is the blessing you truly honor.